Hey Oz, what movie we watching this week?
If you've ever wanted to see the combination of Perfect Strangers, A Night at the Roxbury, and Let the Right One In, all filtered through the lens of Parks and Recreation, I've got the movie for you. This week, we are going to watch Taika Waititi's What We Do in the Shadows. Welcome back to another week of Let's Talk About Flicks, your new favorite podcast where we take a monthly theme and we go back and forth bringing movies to satisfy that theme. Because the theme gods have reached down and blessed us, and we must make sacrifices for his nourishment. I'm one of your hosts, Oz,
and I'm Curtis.
And this week we are talking about Taika Waititi's not Thor, Love and Thunder, but What We Do in the Shadows. Not the Thor ones, but ones that kind of put them on the map to begin with. We're talking about What We Do in the Shadows. Another mockumentary. This is mockumentary month. Another mockumentary that has little to zero plot, which makes conversing about the movie slightly more difficult. But that just gives us a lot more improvisation than
more room to breathe.
That's true. So if you're here only because you enjoy us taking you from point A to point Z, you're going to be a little confused this month.
Because there's not really a point Z.
There's no point Z. We don't necessarily even come in on point A. It's somewhere like point lowercase j or something.
I was going to say there's point uppercase A and lowercase a.
It's true. And they're not in the same location.
No.
So. Before we get started with characters, let's give a shout out to Don S.
Thanks, Don.
Our lonely Patreon subscriber who would love nothing more than to share this airtime with somebody else's name. So
have a
thanks,
warm,
Don.
warm Patreon embrace.
So thank you, Don, for your patronage, and if you would like to help out, you can always hit the link up down below and become a new patron. We're always looking for new patrons. We're always looking for reasons to create mini episodes.
One
we might actually talk about
one of us.
Gobble gobble. All right, so again, we're talking about Taika Waititi, and we can't ignore Jemaine Clement either. We can't. This is their puppy, and so that they've raised for themselves. So who do we have in this motion picture?
I took down 8 characters for the character breakdown. It's Oz's week to lead the plot, as Oz and I exchange plots and characters each week. And
the plot.
The extensive plot of this movie. So I took down 8 characters from this. There's really kind of 4 main ones and then 4 backing characters. So our 4 main characters are, we have Viago, played by the aforementioned Taika Waititi. He is a 379-year-old vampire. He's very uptight. I read that Taika based his performance on his own mother, which is quite interesting.
I read that as well. I thought that was sweet.
We have Vladislav, played by Jemaine Clement. He's the
Vladislav the poker.
Yeah, that's right, the poker. He's the eldest of the vampires at a sprightly 862 years old. He's kind of an old school vampire, enjoys torturing people, dresses in that very kind of gothic style.
Yeah.
We have Deacon, played by Jonathan Bruh, if I get that pronunciation correct. He's
spot on.
He's the young man. He's the youngest of the group at a mere 183 years old. He's the rebel. He does crazy things, and he also likes to knit for fun. So
yeah,
good for him. He's also a kind of a beatnik in that sense. He was actually turned by another one of our characters, Peter, played by Ben Francham. He's 8,000 years old.
Yeah, he's your Nosferatu.
Yes, yeah, very much a Nosferatu knockoff. Prefers isolation, prefers to be in his stone casket in the basement. We then have our 4 sort of supporting characters. We have Nick, played by Corey Gonzalez Macer, if I'm getting that right at all. He's a character, we'll get to this a little bit in the plot. He kind of is introduced to the group a little ways into the movie. We have Stu, who's Nick's friend, who ends up becoming their own personal IT tech. introduces the clan to 21st century technology. We have Jackie, played by Jackie Van Beek, who is Deacon's familiar, so his assistant. And then we have the Beast / Pauline, played by Elena Staiko perhaps, plays Vladislav's ex, also a vampire.
His former Shayla.
That's right, his former Shayla. It takes us back to our Mad Max
Mad Max. Yeah. Which feels like
Oz.
Which
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but Mad Max May feels like forever ago.
It does. It does feel like an eternity ago. And it was like a month and change from at the time of this recording.
Feels forever.
I caught myself reflecting the other day on our first Mad Max movie and our conversation about female characters who get fridged.
Oh, yeah.
and the thought process that goes through that.
Right. Yeah, especially in a horror film.
Yeah.
Of the fridger, the
Yeah.
person doing the fridging. I think about that often as well.
Yeah.
I do.
That's for those who are looking for a highlight in the Let's Talk About Flicks Pantheon. Check out our Mad Max episode.
Yes.
So Oz, what do we have? Yeah.
Just a lot of tears in that episode.
Yes, there were a lot
joy.
of tears and a lot of literal choking because I was laughing so hard at one point, gasping for oxygen. So Oz, there is a plot to this movie. Amidst the characters and
loose.
hilarity. Sure.
It's a loose plot.
Where do we start off with what we do in the shadows?
First of all, this is about as loose of a structure as you can have for a vampire film. Technically, yes, this is a vampire film.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's not making fun of vampire films as much as it is showcasing what vampires are doing when they're like not on a film set. Per se. So really the basis of this film is there's a documentary crew following around these 4 vampire flatmates. Like you mentioned, Viago, Vladislav, Deacon, and Peter, who they all share a flat in the Wellington suburb of Tearo. So they're not even like high profile. This movie was really inspired by their love of vampire movies, really like Interview with the Vampire, because this movie is kind of, I don't know. It's fun because it's just, again, not even a send up of that, but it's like if Interview with a Vampire was strictly about the interview with the vampire and no flashbacks to any of the storytelling, then this would be it. So we've got a documentary crew that is following a human documentary crew that's following around these 4. They're being allowed to like wear crucifixes, so they're they're going to protect themselves that way, but at no time do any of the housemates feel like they are like trying to prey upon the documentary crew. Like they really are so excited to be filmed and followed.
They're happy for the attention.
Yeah. And so again, and these are straight vampires. They've got all the supernatural powers that a vampire should. They can levitate. They have no reflection. They can transform into animals. And so movie starts out. We meet all of our vampires. Movie actually starts out with Viago's alarm clock going off
as he's in his casket, like a 1990s era, simple red LED alarm clock.
Oh yeah, everybody's got one, and so he's reaching out. He turns it off, and he's going to wake everybody up because we've got a flat meeting in 10 minutes, and we see just a real quick glimpse of how everybody lives. How everybody stays in their vampiness. Viago, like you said, he's reaching his hand out of his coffin. He goes to wake up Vladislav, and he's in the middle of like a vampire orgy. Asks for another 15 minutes. When he goes to talk to Deacon, Deacon's just like in a coat closet.
Hanging upside down in the coat closet.
And then, of course, even though, Peter, as old as he has no lines in the movie at all. But like Viago's afraid to go wake up Peter. He goes down and he's like in the catacombs of the basement.
Yeah.
He's in his tomb.
He's terrifying looking, even to the other vampires, because he's the only one that I would say looks supernatural.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you haven't seen it and you want to wrap your brain around it, he looks like Max Schreck in Nosferatu, or he looks like the Barlow character in Salem's Lot. Like he's just that, like, or John Malkovich's rendition of Nosferatu in whatever that vampire movie was. I can't think of it. But yeah, just the like long pointy ears, like white creamy skin, bald head, giant fangs, piercing eyes, like, not your sexy vampires by any stretch.
A horrific vampire.
Yeah, it's just a giant like vampire rat. So they have their they have their flat meeting, and it's like this. What makes this movie so much fun in my mind is they don't have to be vampires. This like they are four just regular roommates that they would make. You could make a sitcom, in the late 90s about this, minus the vampires, and it would probably be the top-rated sitcom on TV, because it's Friends, it's Seinfeld, it's the Big Bang Theory,
it's flatmates doing flatmate stuff.
Yeah, and only these are vampires, and so all of that vampiness gets in the way. They've got a chore wheel that it's Deacon's job to do the dishes, and he hasn't done the dishes in forever. And it's like all the dishes they're all just piled up in the sink, just covered in blood. Like, so it's like these vampires eat on like they use cups to drink their blood.
Well, Viago at one point gets upset because, like, you could put some towels down before you feast on human blood.
Or newspaper.
Yeah.
and so they just go through regular human stuff. Like at night they all decide they're going to go out, and they want to go to a nightclub because they want to feast, they want to eat. Of course, the problem is, this is where the vampireness comes into the way. They can't go in anywhere unless they're invited.
So the bouncer has to say the right things. Right. The bouncer doesn't know that they're vampires.
Right. And so, they think that they blend in, but of course people are, yelling vampires or walking down the street. But all these bouncers at all these nightclubs are not going to let these people in. It's also funny because before they go out, like, they're putting on clothes, but they can't see their own reflections, so they don't know how they look. So they all take turns drawing pictures of each other
and how they would look. Describing them,
And it's fun because it's this clueless wardrobe changing scene, and it's just so much fun, this movie. We meet Jackie, Deacon's his human familiar. Of course, like most of you guys out there in listener viewer land are probably more familiar with the TV show What We Do in the Shadows, which is a spinoff of this on FX. It's been on for like 4 seasons or something, and it is equally hilarious. It is, I would say, the language in that show is more extreme than what the language in this movie is,
which is ironic because that's a TV show versus this being a film.
Right. And so but the movie is from the same creators. There's more than one episode where Deacon and Viago and Vladislav all show up, like, and so there's a lot. The show gives the movie a little bit some more legs to run with.
Sure.
Things that are brought up in the show or in the movie show up in the show and are given a little bit more breathing room just because of the weekly commitment. And so chances are you're more familiar with the show, but the movie is definitely worth a watch. So the concept of the familiar comes up. A vampire basically promises a human, I will turn you into a vampire if you do my bidding. Dracula did it with Rumsfeld. Like, it's age old. We talk about it, not only the original Dracula, but even Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which we covered back in February. And so, Jackie, she's cleaning up the gore left behind by their feeding. She's a married mom. She just wants to be a vampire.
Yeah,
she wants eternal life. She wants immortality.
Yeah, she never really gets into it beyond just I want to be immortal. Like
right, that's all I want to do. So she's just a mom. She's not gothic or she's just
she's like a suburban middle class mom.
Yeah, she's gonna clean up after these guys.
Just like she cleans up after her own children.
Right, and she tries to have a conversation at a nightclub. Where Deacon, or she's trying to I'd like to talk about the arrangement, and he just kind of hypnotizes her and sends her on her way. Bring me. Her job is also to round up virgins, because they want to. They like the taste of virgin blood.
I think they like the idea that they're virgins.
Yeah. Well, it's like Vladislav says too. It's like, think of it like a sandwich. Like, it tastes so much better when no one has slept with it.
You're paraphrasing a little bit there, but yeah.
Slightly, yeah. This is a PG program. And so Deacon requests she bring back some virgins. The first person, she brings back two people. She brings back a woman who insulted her in grade school. And so she's pretty sure, she figures she was a virgin then in grade school. So she's probably still a virgin.
Yeah,
so she brings her.
Logically, that checks out.
And then she also invites her ex-boyfriend, Nick, who was like her boyfriend when they were 10. And of course, he was a virgin then, so he's probably a virgin now. Of course, neither one of these people are virgins. They kill the woman, and Nick actually gets away. He's running through the house. Really cool sequences. They Viago's chasing him, and every corner he turns, Viago is there. A really cool scene where he puts on a backpack, and then Deacon starts. His arm comes out of the backpack and he starts crawling out of the backpack. Long story short,
Vladislav is like the cat with the Vladislav
he's
face.
Got the but Peter gets him.
Yeah,
good old Peter.
Because Peter's basically just a predator. That's all he is.
Yeah, Peter is. Yeah, he's not there to actually converse. He's there to feed. So Peter, he doesn't kill him though. He turns him into a vampire.
Yeah.
And so that makes Nick the youngest of all the vampires now.
Yeah. Which is very upsetting to Deacon. Because Deacon was the young fun guy, and
right.
That was his bit. He was always dancing, and doing crazy Deacon things because he's the young guy at 183 years old.
Because he was the cool one. And now Nick's
he's
cool
threatened. Because Nick's the young guy. Deacon has been unseated as cool young vampire.
And so a couple months flash by. I'm assuming the documentary crew has just had nothing of worth for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
The vampires finally, they accept Nick into their group. Mainly because of Nick's friend Stu, who is a computer analyst. Kind of a fun story, the guy that played Stu, legit is a computer guy. He's an IT guy. And he's a friend of Taika's. And so he invited him in for just this real small part. But of course, he didn't give him any idea of how big the part was actually going to be. So Stu is not an actor. Stu is just a friend.
He's just a guy who
just a guy. Which, because he thought his part was so small, he's just so cool and calm about it. And I think it really amped up his performance because he didn't realize he was going to be such a focal point of the movie. Which always cracks me up because it's Stu, you didn't realize how many scenes you're in? But whatever.
I love how everybody likes Stu, too.
Everybody loves Stu.
Oh, yeah. Despite the fact he's got a pretty blah personality.
Oh, yeah.
They all love him.
But they love him far more than Nick, for sure. And so Stu comes along and introduces them to modern technology. Mm-hmm. We forgot to mention that Viago came to back in early 1900s. He came to New Zealand in search of his love, Catherine, who is now 90. She's
in her 90s.
And so Stu helps Viago with the internet to help find Catherine. Turns out she's just living right there. She's living in like an old folks home right there in Wellington.
Yeah, she's widowed. So she's single.
Yeah, ooh. And so Stu, it's kind of cool. It's just a fun sequence. Showing them like YouTube videos of a sunrise because they've never seen one, and so they're just all oohing and awing about the sunrise. Gets Viago on a Skype call with his former servant Philip, which Viago ends up hanging up on him.
Yeah, he gets bored with that fast,
real quick.
Like it was novel at first, but it's like yeah.
And so one of the things they really like about Nick is Nick can get him into these bars and these clubs because Nick, of course, is a young guy from Wellington, so he knows all the bouncers. He can get him into all these clubs. Other than that, Nick really struggles to adapt to being a vampire. Of course, you already mentioned Deacon doesn't like him because he's the new guy. He's usurped his position. And just Nick doesn't make any effort to keep it quiet.
He tells everybody. Hey, I'm a vampire.
There's a one fun scene where he's trying. Hey, you know Twilight? You know Twilight? Well, I'm Twilight. He's trying to convince a guy that he was Robert Pattinson's character in Twilight. There's another just kind of random fun scene where it was before they turned Nick, where they offer up dinner and it was just a plate of paschetti. Yeah. And Deacon's sitting there and Nick, do you like your paschetti? And it's basically it's the scene from Lost Boys where Kiefer Sutherland's David turns the Patrick guys for Jason Patrick or whatever.
Jason Patrick
Yeah, before Michael turns into a vampire, when he's like giving him like Chinese food and the rice look like maggots and the lo mein noodles look like worms or whatever. It's that scene, but it's with paschetti. Do you like your paschetti? Do you like eating worms?
You can tell that he thinks it's pronounced paschetti because he's so...
Oh, yeah.
He thinks he's toying with it, but he just sounds ridiculous.
And Nick's just an imbecile. Yeah. Like, Nick's an idiot. And so... Nick, he's telling everybody, I'm a vampire. He makes a comment to one guy, he goes, I'm a vampire. And the guy goes, oh, I'm a vampire hunter. And Nick just blows him off thinking that he's messing with him. Well, later on, everybody returns back to the flat, and this vampire hunter had broken into the basement during the day and exposes Peter to sunlight, just burns Peter alive. Which... come to find out, they snapped the vampire, the vampire slayer, the vampire hunter's neck, and Nick admits that he told the guy, and he just didn't believe him, and
he recognized him afterwards, like that. Oh, yeah. I know that guy.
Yeah, that's the guy I told I was a vampire. He said he was a vampire hunter. I just didn't believe him. So now, the vampires are all ticked off. They kick Nick out because he killed Peter. Deacon tries to kill him, but the police show up for a welfare check.
Yeah. He heard a disturbance and saw smoke.
Yeah. There's just completely inept law enforcement. Well, they actually go ahead.
Well, yeah, Viago hypnoptizes them, and
he even admits he's not very good at hypnosis.
I'm not the best at hypnotizing. He tells them that they're not going to see anything out of the ordinary. And so it's this like waiting game. Everybody's on pins and needles. Like, is this charade gonna work?
Yeah.
Like he's like at one point they see the dead vampire hunter on the floor of the basement, and the cops see him as like someone who's just asleep on the floor.
Right. Like Nick's floating in a corner at one point.
And they walk in.
They just ignore it. I don't remember what they pointed out.
Well, at first there was a little moment of, are they onto us? But it's like, oh, this room doesn't have any smoke detectors.
Oh, that's what it was. There's no smoke. It was just fun. They actually spun off the law enforcement into a very short-lived TV show. Where like they just keep investigating all these paranormal activity events and supernatural events going on in Wellington. But it's probably ahead of its time. It just didn't pick up. Man, talking about the plot of this movie is tough because
And
talk about something and then you're like, oh wait, they kicked Nick out, and then I remembered, oh wait, before that they crossed paths with the werewolves and Anton and the werewolves. Like walking through a park and there's a bunch of men, and it's before the moon came out.
They're all trying to tie themselves to trees, right, so that they don't run amok.
Yeah, because a person who is a werewolf doesn't want to. It's a curse. They don't want to be a werewolf, and so they're trying to lock themselves up. And it's like just about every werewolf movie that you see out there that treats werewolves with that storyline is the same way, that lock me up because I'm gonna turn into a beast and things are gonna go south in a hurry. And so they're teasing these werewolves. Vladislav asks if they're smelling each other's crotches, or if they're smelling their crotches, and one guy's like, no, we smell each other's crotches. And one of my favorite bits in this, they work so hard not to swear because they're werewolves, not swearwolves. Yeah. And so several months have passed. They've banished Nick. Although they do let Stu stick around. Yeah, he can come and go as he pleases.
Stu, you're welcome to come.
And several months later, they get an invitation to the annual Unholy Masquerade, which is hosted for the local undead, vampires, zombies, and witches in the Wellington area.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
They even rent a room for it.
That's what witches do. They just rent a room in a hotel.
That's what Angelica Houston did.
And so Vladislav is confused because at first he believes he is the guest of honor. And so he kind of gets a big head on his shoulders about it. Eventually he realizes that his ex-girlfriend, the Beast, is the guest of honor. And now he wants nothing to do with it.
When the Beast was mentioned a couple of times briefly before, as this, like he had lost his powers, or his powers, not lost, but his powers have waned over the years because it's implied that the Beast took them, or the Beast diminished him somehow.
Yeah.
Turns out it's his ex-girlfriend.
It's his ex-girlfriend. And so, when he discovers that it's about her, he just, ages, decrepitly.
Yeah.
Like, all of his life force has been pretty much stolen, and he's just, nope, he's not having it. And so, Viago and Deacon go to the ball. They find Nick there. They find Stu. Nick has turned Jackie into a vampire, so Jackie's there. She's all excited to be a vampire. Again, this is where we find out the Beast is actually Pauline, Vladislav's ex-girlfriend. And this is where everybody there discovers that Stu and the documentary crew are humans, and they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah, because Nick brought Stu as his +1.
Yeah, again, he was confused.
Again, Nick's first time going to this, not thinking that it's that it wouldn't be a good idea to bring a human to a party with zombies, witches, and vampires.
Right, and the same really with Deacon and Viago, as they bring the documentary crew with them. Yeah, and so they break the fourth. Well, it's hard to say they break the fourth wall because we've been talking to a documentary crew the entire time. But this is where
it's the third and a half wall.
Yeah, the documentary crew kind of gets brought into the action instead of just being the camera now. And so the party guests, they all threaten to kill. They're going to feed on him. This is when Vladislav arrives, and he's got this dumb mask on. He's decked all in white. Doesn't think anybody knows who he is until he takes his mask off. He gets into a fight with Pauline's new boyfriend. And so Stu out of nowhere, Vladislav and Julian, this new boyfriend, are having this fight. Stu comes out of nowhere and just impales Julian on a flagpole. The vampires, the documentary crew, they get out. They save Stu. Everybody gets out. This is where they run into a pack of werewolves. It's now a full moon, so they transform. Stu and one of the cameramen get mauled by the werewolves. It's kind of a cool scene. So they all run off. They think Stu's dead. They grieve for him because Stu's the only person they ever really cared about. And so, fast forward again in time. Nick comes back to the flat with Stu, finds out Stu survived the attack, and he's now a werewolf.
Yep, he's been turned.
So Stu he's urging, he's asking, hey, let's see what we could do here. So the werewolf pack visits the vampires. Stu's kind of bridging the gap between the two. They let Nick back into the fold. Again, Stu's really like the great, the great savior of all of this. Yeah,
because everybody likes Stu.
Right. And so Deacon, he invites the werewolves inside. Viago reconnects, and it's a really cute scene. Reconnects and with Catherine, who he is now turned into a vampire. Yeah, so it's like 96-year-old woman.
90-something-year-old Catherine.
And she's just so excited to be there. Yeah. And he makes it, he's like, a lot of people comment about the age gap. Because, of course, he looks way, way younger. Yeah. A lot of people comment about the age gap, like I'm some kind of cradle robber, because he's like twice her age.
He's nearly 400 years old.
I got him confused with Deacon's age. Yeah, he's like ancient compared to her. So it's just this fun little spin. So there's some scenes during the credits. Vladislav's got back together with Pauline. He's now like self-inflicting torture because their relationship is so bad. Jackie is still a vampire. Her husband is now her familiar. At the very, very end, little post-credit scene, Deacon's trying to hypnotize all of us in the audience to forget about the events of the film.
I wouldn't have even noticed that. I was typing in some notes and doing some of my other like post-plot stuff, and I hadn't turned the movie off.
It just happened to be on.
And it came back on.
Yeah, I didn't catch it the first couple times I saw it, but I'd seen it in the trivia or something, so I stuck it out. It's just a fun little scene. Really, this whole movie is nothing more
than a fun little scene.
just a fun little scene. It's just a collection of everyday things spun through a vampire filter, and how it's funny. Yeah, like Stu comes along and introduces them to digital photography, so now they can actually see what they look like in their outfits, and they've and it's just a fun movie. So what are your, even without this, like, where do you stand on vampire films, like vampires as horror villains? Like, where do you stand in that regard?
I mean, I like a good vampire flick, like a lot of people do. The Bram Stoker's Dracula, which again, as Oz mentioned earlier, we did in February, our month of love.
Yeah, wife's choice.
Wife's romantic choice. Yeah, because my wife is nuts and picked Bram Stoker's Dracula as her choice for romance. Yeah.
It arguably was the most romantic movie we watched that month. Though.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, predatory romance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like a good vampire flick. I love it how in this movie they played up all the typical vampire characteristics. As and you mentioned some of these before, but they can float, they drink blood, they have to regularly drink blood, particularly human blood, to continue to survive.
When Viago bites that one girl, one lady, and accidentally hits an artery. It's an artery,
and he's like laughing at the blood as it's shooting out.
He's freaking out because it's getting everywhere. Yeah. And and the other scene where he's talking about Catherine, and he shows like the silver locket she left him, and he put his own picture in there, and then puts it on, and his chest starts to sizzle and smoke.
That's as long as I can wear this.
But he's just so proud because he's so in love.
Yeah, I love the balance here of like the mundane, as you said, sort of like the sitcoms. You use Parks and Rec, in one of your movie marriages, just sort of like the day-to-day grind of whatever one is or does. Balanced with the vampire tropes. I think it's great.
Yeah, it just the movie marriage was really easy for this one. Perfect Strangers, Night at the Roxbury. I thought about The Office, but I'm like, this has more of a Parks and Rec feel than an Office feel. Of course, then I just had to throw a vampire movie in to the marriage as the foundation, and it was an easy one.
There you go.
But yeah, it's just, again, we said it last week, we'll say it the next 2 weeks. Although I think the next 2 weeks, there's more of a plot line. than we've had, especially this week. This week was just documentary crew with vampires. So, and
if you're looking for plot, this is not the movie to go to. And mockumentary is probably not the genre for you in general, anyways.
No. But this is definitely one that I feel you could watch this movie repeatedly and catch different things that you missed. Yeah,
different gags.
Yeah, because there's always a little something going on in the background, but it's just because it's fun. Mm-hmm. Like of these four, including five, we'll include Peter and we'll include Nick. Two questions.
Sure.
Who was your favorite? And which one do you feel you would have identified with, more?
I think I would have identified probably with Viago the most. Just me and some of my analness. Yeah. I would have identified with Viago the most. I really enjoyed the Peter character. and again, it's not because he was featured much. He was only on camera for probably a total of a minute or two throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire movie, but just. How the others are just terrified of him, and vampires terrified of this other vampire, and again he's the one who looks the most vampire-ish. He's the one who could not pass for human if he was out.
No,
I love what he is and represents, and how the other characters react to him.
He's just by force, he's the recluse, and he's okay with it.
Yeah.
You never see him anywhere else. He's actually good friends with Deacon. There's one fun little where they're talking to Deacon, and Deacon's talking about being turned, and Peter's just shaking his head yep, that's how it went. It's just Peter's the I know you and I don't like to go the looks route, but it's Peter is by default, he's the ugly roommate that everybody loves anyway, but it's we can't get caught with him because he the jig is up.
Yeah.
I would say I probably also would probably relate more to Viago than the others. And it's a toss up. I would say I really like Vladislav's character. I really like Jemaine Clement anyway. Yeah. I think he's hilarious. Yeah. And so, but yeah, his portrayal of just macho, I am the sexy vampire.
Yeah.
I did see that he based his performance on Gary Oldman and Bram Stoker's Dracula, which it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Just this, I can do whatever I want.
Kind of larger than life. Yeah.
But at the core of it is so unsure of himself and has very low self-esteem and just acts way overboard in order to
compensate,
to portray,
to compensate for his own inadequacy.
Yeah. What is? Do you have a favorite vampire movie?
Oh man, it's. I mean, I could list a few, knowing full well I'll forget something here in the moment. Oh my goodness. I mean, Nosferatu as a throwback is great. Bram Stoker's Dracula is great. What's that? Oh, I'm blanking on the name of it.
I think I know, and I'm just
Bill Paxton.
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh God, you're. Well, of course, vampire movies you like, and of course I can't remember the name of it. Catherine Bigelow directed it. You're not going to tell me, are you?
Zero Dark 30.
You're
Point Break. Is it Point Break?
Yes, it's Point Break. You something or other.
It's Near Dark. You're thinking of Near Dark.
Yes, I had the box art in my head, and I just couldn't put the words.
Lance Henriksen. There
you go.
Jeanette Goldstein.
Yeah. Oh, Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen. You put them together, and you're always gonna have a winner. What about you?
And Jeanette Goldstein. You can throw her in the mix too. It's no surprise that I believe at that time that was when I think James Cameron and Catherine Bigelow together.
Yes.
At one point.
Yeah, that was
probably
right
that time.
That was right on the heels of Aliens.
Yeah, because they were sharing a lot of cast members. Vampire movies for me. I'm a big fan. I do like Lost Boys a lot. I do like Near Dark a lot. I love the fact that they never call them vampires.
Yeah.
They never refer to them as vampires. They're just vampires. But no, I've seen a lot of garbage as well. I like George Romero's Martin. I think that's a fun vamp, even though he's probably not a vampire. It's still fun.
But there's like From Dusk Till Dawn, which is just just dumb fun.
Just nuts. Yeah. I only because of nostalgia purposes, we had HBO as a kid, and Once Bitten with Jim Carrey was on all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that movie.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Oh, I would chalk it up mainly to nostalgia. It is pure 80s. And it's contained Jim Carrey. He's not Ace Ventura Jim Carrey yet. Small dose Jim Carrey. And he's just charismatic, and it's a fun movie. It's a very fun movie.
There's also like Andy Warhol's Dracula, like
I've seen that one.
Was it Udo Kier? I think
yes.
The Virgin, bring me a Virgin.
A Virgin. Because there was a couple of them there. There was Flesh for Frankenstein and was it Blood for Dracula?
I think so. Yeah, I couldn't remember the full name of it.
Yes, Blood for Dracula. And it's not bad. I think both of those movies got Criterion cuts. And it was there. I mean, they're just so lavish.
Yeah.
Then of course you got you can't go without Christopher Lee and all the Hammer films, which also are just so like they're so much fun. But they're definitely a different mindset of. But no, I think the vampire genre, I mean, you could go, they've made it for about everybody.
Yeah.
I know one of our go-tos with our good college friend Bernie, Best Buy Bernie, who had all of the, who back in college freshman year of 98 had all of the like primo, he was the first one on the floor with a DVD player. And tower surround sound. Like, Bernie had it.
Oh, yeah.
His room was the destination. And whenever he wanted to show anybody anything, it was... and I give Bernie all the credit. After he introduced me to DVD, I went out and bought a new TV and DVD player. And 3 DVDs. I remember my first 3 DVDs were Pitch Black, which I never watched, ever. The Bone Collector.
Bone Collector.
And I think Bring It On. I was pretty sure... no, it was American Beauty. Those 3 were my first 3. I do think I was the first person in Macomb to own a copy of Bring It On DVD.
And probably still the only.
Probably still the only. But yeah, Blade was his go-to. He would always show the opening scene of Blade. He would always show. And we can't forget, the best vampire movie of all time, Morbius.
It's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time. And so, yeah, that's... I mean, we've obviously digressed a little bit from what we do in the shadows, but...
I'm looking through a list on IMDb of vampire movies and all the ones we didn't mention. Fright Night.
Oh, yeah, I love Fright Night.
Yeah. Let's see, you got the
Underworld. Like, I really love Fright Night. I could care less about the Underworld movies.
Yeah. The Hunger. Hunger's another really good one.
Oh, yeah. David Bowie and
it's an early
Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, Tony Scott movie.
Yeah, that's good.
Then you've got more of like your kind of gore horror, like 30 Days of Night.
That was good. I really liked that.
It was fun.
Jenny and I saw that in the theater with Josh Hartnett and Danny Houston.
Yeah.
And Melissa George.
I like the Fright Night remake. I didn't think was bad either.
It was good. It was good. I liked that. I liked, setting it in Vegas was kind of a cool idea, just because that city never sleeps and it's always dark.
Van Helsing.
Oh man, is that Wolverine?
That's Wolverine. That's Wolverine and Underworld.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Vampire movies.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks. Well, at this point, we are going to get into Oz and I's real ratings, as we each will provide our own unique rating to the film in question. In this case, 2014's What We Do in the Shadows. Oz, how would you rate this movie?
I'd give this 8 months of Stu as a roommate.
8 months of Stu?
I think Stu'd be a great roommate.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably do the dishes more than Deacon. How about you?
I'm going to go with... I have one down, but I think I'm going to alter. I'm going to go with 82 Chained Up Werewolves.
Oh, good one.
Mm-hmm. Solid.
One of my favorite. I know one of my favorite werewolves in movies is from Monster Squad.
Mm-hmm. Another.
You know who plays the werewolf in Monster Squad?
I do not recall.
John Grease, Uncle Rico.
Really?
Yes. He doesn't play the werewolf. He plays the man who is the werewolf.
Got it.
But yeah.
That makes all the sense in the world, since that werewolf threw a football over the mountain.
You throw it a quarter mile.
Coach only would have put me in. We would have won state. And now we're quoting Napoleon Dynamite as
that's
we're
all right.
talking about what we do in the shadows.
But when I think of werewolves that like want to be constrained in an effort to not wolf out, he's the one I think of. Mm-hmm. I love Monster Squad.
Our next segment here would be Outside Insight, where Oz and I each bring some kind of non-professional review that we found scouring some source on the interweb, and we present that review to you, our listeners. Oz, let's share your Outside Insight. Where did you find this one, buddy?
This one is from Letterboxd. Ollipops gives it 4.5 stars and says, "This film is actually so funny, I have seen it many times, and it still made me laugh. Taika Waititi does a funny voice. Also, I don't remember Vladisov being so sexy, but gosh darn, I think I need to start dressing in frilly shirts and fur coats. It's an entire movie about vampires. Imagine how many Morbius jokes I could have made. I think I've shown restraint."
I always self-narrate my restraint, too. Hey, everyone, this is me being restrained right now.
Just so you know, I am really holding it back.
I'm not running into traffic right now, despite the fact that it's really tempting.
I like the fact that there was no Morbius mentions until Ollipops mentions they didn't mention Morbius. So there you go. But yeah,
what other things did Ollipops not mention in his review?
All kinds of stuff. Paschetti.
He didn't mention Paschetti.
But Taika Waititi does a funny voice.
My outside insight comes from IMDb, from user Cosmasp23. Gotta get reading this in my own inflection as well.
Oh, yeah, same.
Let me start with, I don't like reality TV at all. And there is a reason you have to put asterisks, because it is anything but real. And while this isn't real either, obviously, it is so much more fun than anything, and feels more like what good reality TV could be if there were vampires, that is.
Oh, man.
There's more here, but whatever.
I'm glad that he's painted a picture of how this is different than the Kardashians.
Yeah, this movie,
but yet more real. This is more real than the Kardashians.
Real. It's more real.
Only if vampires were real. All right.
All right. Thanks for your insights there, Cosmasp. 23.
Yeah, same to you, Ollipops. Thank you.
And folks, it's time for the segment you've all been tuning in for, our signature segment, the 3-2-1, where Oz and I each share 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 about the film in question. Oz, what are your 3 goods for 2014's What We Do in the Shadows?
My first good, I really enjoy the attention to just the everyday things, but spun through a vampire lens. Yeah. Movies rarely show you like everyday occurrences because they aren't an escape from reality. Mm-hmm. Things like doing the dishes or having an argument with a roommate or, things like that. But spun through this lens, it just makes it funnier, and so just that of like, when you think vampire movie, you think a certain thing, and a lot of the movies that we've talked about, and yet this movie includes that stuff, but on a very minor level.
Yeah.
Because we have other things of like Vladislav trying to telepathically speak to somebody and then tapping on the window anyway because it's not working.
In that sense, it kind of reminds me of Hot Fuzz. How when they did Hot Fuzz, they intentionally wanted to go in like, we're going to make a movie like Point Break or Bad Boys, but we're going to show all the boring paperwork that police officers have to actually do as well. So it shows them booking them and filling out all the mundane paperwork.
Yeah, like that's the montage, is the paperwork scenes. And so that's my first cut. I love the, like, they didn't go whole hog and make a vampire movie. They were like, nope, vampires can also be boring. Not every vampire is this like majestic castle living, superstar. My second good is I just like the very small handful of scenes with Anton and the werewolves. And so it was fun because it's like, yes, we're watching this documentary about vampires, but we just as easily could have had another documentary crew with Anton and the werewolves. Like they peppered in just enough like werewolf lore that made that funny, and so struggling with their curse and the fact they turn into dogs so they still sniff crotches and they fake fetch Vladislav, or I think it was Vladislav or Deacon, like fake throwing a stick and one of them wants to go out. It's just that kind of fun stuff. That it's like, no, werewolves aren't necessarily superpowered beings either. They're just human dogs. So that's my second good. And my third is just the acceptance of Stu and all the technology stuff. Watching a sunrise on YouTube, taking photos, just all that stuff. He brought a meal. Like Stu coming into the house was a meal, but he brought so much more to these guys that they valued him for his other resources. And I just thought that was fun. That like you just get, again, just kind of throwing water on the vampires and humans can't coexist. It's like, no, they can if they like you well enough. And so that's my third good. How about you?
My three goods. I'm going to start with the effects. This movie was pretty low budget. And because it's vampires, everything's at night, so I think they're able to kind of hide some things just because it's darker. But just the little transformation sequences and and how they kind of wove the editing into the effects as well, I thought was just genius. Making the most of what you got and the resources you have, and but and some of the things they did on camera, like the bat transformations and all that, and how hiding the wire works with them floating. It was just fun. Just fun.
Yeah, there absolutely is no denying that even though like this was early in Taika Waititi's career, like dude has chops. Like he's showing at an early level that he knows how to make a film and he knows how to add effects, and he just and it's just grown from there. So very happy to be living in the time of Taika right now.
Yeah. He's definitely in his heyday right now. As I mentioned last week, sight gags. I love a good sight gag. This movie is chock full of sight gags. Whether it be the cops walking in and they're hypnotized and the things that they're seeing and not seeing. Some of the gags that you mentioned, with the werewolves. Again, we also mentioned this before too, but Viago, he hits the main artery when he's trying to when he's going after a victim, and it just starts squirting everywhere, and he's mad at himself because blood's getting everywhere. And now he has to clean it up, and again, I'm just such a fan of just silly throwaway sight gags that don't drive the plot or the story, but they're just there for a yuck, and that's it.
Yeah.
My last would be, I love how, again, I have a feeling this is going to come up with our bads, but as little of a plot as there was, I thought they did a good job with the character histories. You don't get their life story, but you don't need their life story. They give you just enough, to kind of flesh out who they are and how they became to be the person or the vampire they are today. Like with Viago and, following the love of his life from Great Britain to New Zealand, and how this has kind of always been something that he's felt like he's missed out on for the last almost 100 years.
Oh yeah, well it's because like I said, when he went to follow her and then like postage got mixed up, so it took longer to get there, and by the time he got there she had already fallen in love, so he just backed off. And so that was,
he didn't have the heart to go after her. He just let her be happy.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So the characters, and again, just enough of their history. So yeah, those are my 3 goods. Oz, what are your 2 bads?
First one is this movie just wasn't long enough. I would have loved to see another hour of just what they could come up with, because you could tell they were having a blast making it. It was just fun watching it. Mixed in the same level. It's like there wasn't really a lot of swearing in the movie, but at the same time, like, I'm looking forward to when my kids are old enough that I can put this in front of them.
Yeah.
Because it's not scary, but yet there's horror elements, and it's funny, but there's enough bad language. Just one of those mixtures of. But at the same time, knowing the age of my kids, right now they wouldn't get any of the jokes. It's almost like you can't really enjoy this movie until you've seen other vampire movies to build up enough knowledge of vampire lore to then, watch them make fun of it. And so that's really, it's a dumb one, but, just the movie went long enough. Very thankful for the show, though.
Yeah.
Different cast, three different vampires. But, oh, man, is this show so funny. They've really, taken it and run with it and made it their own while still staying within the universe. Yeah. And so it's a lot of fun. Because they're this crew in the show, they're in Long Island or Staten Island.
Yeah.
They're not over in New Zealand.
Because where else would a vampire enclave set up than Staten Island?
Right. And so just I think that's, our like Americanized version of making fun of Wellington, New Zealand is like, well, we're just outside of New York. And so that's my first one. And 2, Nick was just a bad vampire.
That's on my list. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a detractor, but it just the Nick role didn't do a lot for me.
Yeah,
but at the same time, maybe he was excellent at what he was doing, because he just gave off this like dumb early 20s like stereotypical frat boy kind of thing. Yeah. And then that's who he was.
Yeah, kind of entitled, and yeah.
Yeah, and like Deacon Deacon was Deacon, but it's like Nick was just an idiot. So that was my second bad. Was just Nick was just a bad vampire.
That whole subplot. The character in the subplot was one of my bads.
And it's like, but at the same time, it's like I have to bring it along because one of my goods was Stu. How do you get Stu in there without Nick? So, but Nick was the catalyst for a lot of the negative things that went on. Yeah. Like, it was Nick's fault that Peter died. It was Nick's fault that all heck broke loose at the the Unholy Masquerade. Like, it's just all of it was Nick's fault. Yeah. So I think Deacon was onto something by not liking Nick.
Yeah, he was. that brilliant Deacon.
And his Piscetti trick.
Piscetti.
So, how about you? What are your bads?
My 2 bads. I'll go with the low hanging fruit. The plot. I mean, there is no plot, and I'm really being nitpicky here, because a movie like this, again, it's not about the plot. It's about the characters and the gags. But again, there really was a very vague shoestring of a plot that kind of tied things together. Not that I needed some interweaving layers of literature to drive the plot, but I think it would have been nice if there was a little something more there.
Yeah. Yeah, movies like this don't turn to a novelization very easily.
Yeah, that's why you don't see the novel of This Is Spinal Tap,
Yeah, it's a series of pamphlets.
Yeah. My other bad, I wanted more of the Jackie character. I was fascinated.
Yeah, she was fun.
I was fascinated with that character. Again, like this, middle-class suburban mom who just wants to be immortal. And when she's clearly annoyed with Deacon for not turning her. He puts her off. He avoids her. And then when she finally gets turned, she's happy. Yeah, there was the little bit during the credits about, like, she and her husband are having like a chat, and she's like, "But remember, I'm in charge."
Yeah,
because he's basically her familiar now.
Oh yeah.
I also love the.
But
bit.
It's just
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I also love the bits. It was a little earlier before she got turned, where she's upset at Deacon, and she's kind of having her little vignette. She's like, "Well, if I was," I'm paraphrasing here, but if I was male, they would have turned me a long time ago.
Yeah. And it's funny with Jackie because you get a sense that like her life is probably very boring.
Yeah.
Like she's a mother, she's married, and that the boring everyday life is probably what leads her to want to be immortal. But at the same time, like being immortal just means that boring life is your life now.
Yeah.
Like, because we're watching these vampires, their lives aren't like magnificent. You know, they're very hamstrung by what they can't do. And Jackie's like, I went in on that. It's just kind of a grass is greener situation.
Careful what you ask for.
and so that was, I agree though. I really like the Jackie character.
Yeah. So yeah, just more Jackie. Oz, what's your one for this movie?
My there was a lot of artwork in this movie. And my is, do you think that the artwork in this movie was found or created for the movie? Aside from, obviously there were instances where the characters were added, but I was really impressed with the archaic artwork. Just very Necronomicon-esque, but just a lot of the paintings or whatever, that it's like, good for the filmmakers to be like, we found somebody or a series of somebodies that could produce all of this artwork for us, and it looks dated and it looks historically accurate. And so it's like, I wonder how much of that was found and then altered to look at, or if it was all created. Because if it was all created, that person needs like an Etsy shop.
Yeah, it's great stuff. My is why did this movie need a Kickstarter to get released in America?
I know. Well, it's because it's America. We're idiots.
We clearly know the answer to that, but it shouldn't have.
No.
This is hilarious stuff, but we don't know what funny is without the bang bang zoom zoom pow pow and witty quips.
There's no pop
culture references.
There's no catchphrase and there's no laugh track. So how are we supposed to know what's
funny? How do I know what's funny if the movie isn't telling me what's funny?
I know, it's like they spoke English and they were Caucasian, so those barriers are already down. It should have worked just fine in America.
Yeah. So
I agree though. I'm glad it was though.
Yeah, eventually.
And even like the New Zealand government kicked in a bunch of money to make sure it got finished off, and I love it when that happens. Like when you see these other countries that are like, let's help you out.
Yeah.
I watched the David Cronenberg's newest movie this morning, and I saw a lot of it was I don't know how much was funded, but it was like, how the beginning of a movie before they get to the title, they go through like all the little quick of the production companies that were involved. And like Film Canada was one of them, and I'm like, that's awesome that there's that nations around the world value art to the point that they're like, we'll help you out.
Not America, folks.
Not here. Nope.
You entertain me. That's your job.
That's right.
It's your duty to entertain me, not do art for art's sake.
The best we could do is a tax break.
You're lucky if you get that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, next week, what do we got in store?
We are going to hit week 3 of Mockumentary Month with the granddaddy of mockumentaries.
Yes.
Or the father or whatever. He's the patriarch of the mockumentary world. We're going to catch Christopher Guest's Best in Show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, very excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of an obvious one for this month, but I think sometimes you have to be obvious.
Oh, and that's totally fine. Yep, absolutely. And I think we could have gone with any number of Christopher Guest movies. But I think the one you chose, possibly is one of the more mainstream. Yeah. Which I think is perfectly fine. Yeah.
And in this case, mainstream doesn't mean less than. It just happens. It just means that more people enjoy it, which is a good thing.
Oh, I love this.
You want good quality stuff to be entertained and popularized.
I'm also excited that you enjoyed your first viewing of What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes, yeah, I was very, very happy with that, and a little upset at myself that I hadn't taken the time to watch this before.
Well, and you know how I feel when I get to introduce you to
Yes.
something that you haven't seen before, and so when you like it, it makes me very happy. So my heart is warm.
So I guess in that sense, I need to not watch more things.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you when you almost watch something, don't tell me what you almost watched, and then I'll tell you to watch.
Then you'll tell me to watch the thing I was gonna watch, but then stopped
yeah.
to hear from you first to give you the joy.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. That's mainly what it's about. It's about that.
Yep.
Have you? And the answer is probably no. Have you watched Everything Everywhere All at Once yet?
I have not. That's on the list.
Okay.
But again,
you got to get there.
Yes. I did watch.
Get there.
I did watch the honest trailer for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and they referenced how that's a better multiverse movie than Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and I have watched Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness now, so I need to watch the honest trailer for that. So
yeah, it's pretty funny. I think like most of the time, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah. I'll have to definitely watch that before we get done here. All right, listeners and viewers, that's another week of Let's Talk About Flicks.
Yes, it is.
Episode 37
I know.
Is now in the books.
On the road to 30,000.
And we will be back next week with Best in Show. We are everywhere you need us to be. You could find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Of course, we mentioned Patreon. You could catch our lovely visages on YouTube if you so choose. Your favorite podcast app, you could find us there. Spotify.
Shout out
Stitcher.
to our overlords at the Chicago Indie Critics as well.
Yes. We are now affiliate members of the Chicago Indie Critics. So if you happen to
affiliate
follow
status.
That's right. If you follow the folks over there, you'll see our podcast show up in the stream. So that's a fun little network I'm looking forward to fleshing out into. So there may be times in the future where we've got a little crossover stuff going on. We don't know. We're still just young pups in the world of the Chicago Indie Critics.
Lapping at the warm milk presented to us.
So, if you do follow those guys, you're looking at two of us, the two newest. We're the Deacon and Nick of
That's
the
right.
Chicago
We're the new
Indie
kids on the block, and we'll totally be threatened by whoever they let in after us.
That's right. We're hanging tough. All right. Well, for another week of Let's Talk About Flicks, I am Oz.
I am Curtis.
And we'll catch you next week.